Hello again, YouTube. Welcome back. Today, I've decided to do something a little different. I was noticing the other day that, the, the battle was a little long, and I imagine that some people will have a hard time sitting through all of it. So I figured I'd make a time lapse of the video. It's a little slower this time compared to that other time lapse we did. So hopefully it won't be quite as hard on the eyes watching it. Yeah. So right now, as you can see on the screen in front of you, we are doing our pre-battle stuff. We're buying rifles before the Grand Battle of Shiloh. Looks like I'm just going back and forth deciding if I want to upgrade rifles. I'm going over stats, comparing things, and then I end up using some reputation to buy some rifles. And looks like, yes, we're going to end up putting some more infantry regiments in. Looking good. Got a whole bunch of Sharps rifles. I wonder, did I ever use? No, I think I bought more Enfields. Yes. Or did I? No, I didn't. Well, I believe it was just artillery, right? Here, I'm looking at the terrain. Yes, I remember now. We looked at the terrain, concluded that there were far too many trees for cavalry to be overly useful, so we went with lots of artillery. Over cavalry, though. Unfortunately, we didn't have quite enough guns to make a full regiment, and unfortunately, again, we didn't have quite enough divisions to make up a full army, so here we are. Ah, yes, and I discovered the details panel again. Inspecting our army, what sort of guns that they're carrying. Standard stuff that you'd expect, much similar to ours. And one last check. Oh yes, we buy supplies because I remember Shiloh is a battle that drags on for a while. Considering how low our supply skill is, yeah, it's probably a good move. And I also bought some palmettos. Finally gonna go? Ah, perfect. There we go. Here we have our introduction. Our scouting report of the battlefield. Basically says we've got 3 points of attack to begin with, and then we're all kind of gonna focus down the landing site once we push them back from there. And here we're formulating our strategy on how to break through, just looking at the terrain, seeing where we expect the Union infantry to be and how to push into it. I kind of like the left side a bit, but not that great. And I like the right side a little more, so that's where we're gonna end up pushing. Talking about where I want the artillery to be. Yes, very good. A lot of strategizing and commenting on it. You'll remember if you watched the previous video beforehand, the hour and a half long full battle list or video. And we stack up as close to the front as possible. Now we're looking at our numbers, comparing reasonably to the Union, which isn't ideal because we'd want to have more on an attack, but can't have everything you want. Split off skirmishers to go scout ahead. And we're taking no time waiting for a skirmish battle to occur. We're just gonna advance right on the enemy. Quite literally right up to them. Yeah, and I get distracted for a minute and stop advancing, but we just want to keep advancing with our infantry here. Because we have the numbers. It doesn't matter if we come into melee contact. We have more rifles, we have more men. It's just keep going. Advance under fire and shoot them. Or stab them. Either or, just keep going. Now we're starting to line up for the cavalry or the infantry push in the right flank. And we got our reinforcements here. Start deciding what to do with them. Send our infantry up on the right flank to hopefully push further, a little deeper. Next thing is we try and get our artillery up to be able to push them back, and then we get our infantry in range to start infantry battling. We stop because we get charged by the Union infantry, which is a bad move on their part because we break them, and then we break those guys in the center there. So we start moving up properly. Yep, and there it goes. Cavalry charges us, but that's no concern at all. What are you gonna do? Shoot us? We're already getting shot. There we go. Yeah, we push right across the river into that routing unit, so charging us, probably a bad idea. Just a big effort to try and keep the artillery in pace with the infantry here, because the whole point of bringing so much artillery is to be able to push enemy infantry out of trees, and the whole point in being able to push them out of the trees is so we take less casualties, and we can't do that if the artillery is not there yet. So it's a lot of waiting around for the artillery to catch up and trying to stand in fortified positions, line battling the enemy. On the left there, doing our best to harass them with the sharpshooters. We don't have many sharpshooter rifles yet, so we could have obviously gone with some less good rifles like the Huntsman rifle, or the Hunter rifle, I can't remember. But we didn't go with it. Oh yes, we also avoided trying to take Shiloh Church until our artillery had come up, so that when if the battle decided to update, like change phase or whatever it does, however you want to say it, then the artillery would be in position once we had captured the church. And this triggers, once we finally do move up to the church, that triggers the Union to start moving forward. And that's to their detriment, because then they all die, and then they get reinforcements, so it brings them from their disadvantage, thanks to our superior positioning, to even. And then, once the timer runs out on the capture of Shiloh Church, then we move to the right flank. Now this army isn't even ours, so we can do with it what we want. And it turns out to compose of a lot of very large infantry sections, or brigades, and some rather large artillery brigades, with some acceptable cannon amounts. Like, there's a few. I think there was 18 Napoleon guns in that one section there. And then I think the other one is 18 12-pounder howitzers. So, not good, but not the worst they could be. Not 6-pounder fields, at least. There we go. Yeah, and we've detached skirmishers, and they're just kind of trying to push the right flank. And we're going along the same strategy we did in the left flank. We're gonna push, except we're gonna push on the left side of our respective front here. We're gonna go up through this forest and get as close to the enemy as possible, and then ideally be in cover and shoot them. And you can see we're stacking up infantry behind each other in case they rout, and trying to keep our commander nearby, if I can remember to move him. I don't know if I do. So I don't think our morale becomes a problem, because the tree line is very good cover. We also move that artillery as close up as possible, because the Napoleons are best when they're right in front of the enemy. So here we are, we've pushed back some artillery, and there we go. Now our skirmishers and our gigantic cavalry section our gigantic cavalry section on the right flank there is battling a line infantry regiment in the woods, so very favorable engagement for us, honestly. There we go, we've broken the Union infantry on the left flank, and now we're pushing up across this field. And this turns out to be not the greatest achievement, it would seem, because when that timer runs out on the contested Saipan field, or Spain field, does it say Spain? Yeah, it does say Spain. Contested Spain field, then it updates its phase again, so we go back to the left flank. Which, not the worst thing, but I kind of wanted to stand here and shoot people some more, but, whatever. And there it is, yeah. Back to Shiloh Church. And yes, supposedly the enemy's got a big advantage over here, and interestingly, the routing regiment on our right is from the left flank, or from our right flank. So, they've kind of transferred sides to the battlefield there. And then I decide to swap out that line in the front there. There we go. Because they were out of stamina. We did have to run them into position a lot, so positioning is very key in this game. Yeah, unfortunately, this other regiment here on the left has got super low morale, so its shooting is kind of not volleyed. So it's gonna stay low morale until we can get something to replace it. And then we see Grant there. And then I notice a lack of infantry in this field in front of us, so I consider moving up. And that's what we do, yes. There we go. We get into position in the trees and we start working that over. Very good. And we move up the artillery because ideally we'd like to have the artillery all the way along this line. Keep the enemy from pushing into us. We are spread pretty thin for how, well, we're spread as thin as the Union, so even enough. In better cover, so good for us. And we continue to move up, trying to stay to the good cover. There we go. I think the cavalry's done fighting over in the right. Yeah, maybe. I can't quite remember at this time. Looks like we're moving both regiments up. Oh, and then we're off to the right flank again. We did a good job holding the line, and now we move right. So we continue back where we left off. We have our reinforcements from the right there, and now we're deciding how to go about taking the Hornet's Nest, and then we realize we don't even need to take the Hornet's Nest. So I'm considering bypassing the objective entirely here. I think we do try and take it though, or we end up taking it. Just because of how the battle turns out. How long they defend it. It does get rather hairy here because I commit too many infantry regiments to the left flank too fast, and the enemy takes advantage of this and pushes forward into us. Yeah, there they are. There we go. And we start falling back, and our artillery is right there, but doesn't get a shot off, so we have to start moving them back, but we run up the infantry to plug the hole in the line. And that works out fine. Didn't lose too many. And I'm like, alright, well, we'll take this part a little more seriously, this front end. While we begin to flank around and hopefully deal with all this artillery that we can see. And this is a good position to flank from, honestly. It works out great. There are good lines of advancement and lines of fire. And we're shooting into the enemy's artillery, which is always a good thing. On the right there we have Jackson, I think, skirmishing in the water against that one regiment of Union infantry that decided to not break. Or that did decide to break, and that we've moved on from. We're still trying to move up the artillery that spawned in late, and shockingly enough, it is having a very hard time moving through the forest. Who would have thought? Moving up a hill and through a forest. Oh, and here we go. We're trying to micro Jenkins, that's his name, into flanking, was it Stewart there, I think. And we're doing our best to avoid the water, because that's not where we want to be. And Jenkins is running very low on stamina and ammunition, so it's not looking good for him. And as you can see with the Hornet's Nest here, that we're kind of encircling it, which is good for us. It's very good for us. The enemy seems to be keen on staying around it, and it just works because that means we can just shoot into their flanks. And then I almost have a heart attack here because that cavalry looked suspiciously like it was going to run through our lines and capture our supplies like it did last time. But it didn't, and we managed to shoot it and rout it, so that was fine. It turned out to not be a problem. And I think I was commenting on there that we don't even need these these areas that we've captured before, apparently, to win the battle, so we don't have to worry about Stuart on the right there if we have to withdraw, and then Jenkins routes anyway, so it's fine. And he routes into the water, so I've given up all hope on him returning alive, because I assume he's just going to permanent route into the water and stay there forever, get shot up by Stuart. So I go back to microing the front line, and I'm hesitant to push into the Hornet's Nest because I don't want the next phase of the battle to start, so I can stay here fighting. But it ends up not being an issue. Well, I mean, we do advance the next phase of the battle, I'm pretty sure, but we're kind of pushing up pretty hard right now, so it didn't matter. I believe, I think I was talking about the landing, Pittsburgh landing, to be right there, yeah, so. We gotta be careful about ironclads, and then we realize, hey, the whole battlefield's here, look at that. We got everything. So on the left flank, we're gonna hope to try and keep all those infantry pinned down where they are so they can't escape to Pittsburgh Landing. And on the right flank, we're going to continue our massive push forward here with our incredible infantry advantage. And, you know, try and keep going. I noticed some supplies there, which is nice because we were running out. So we captured them and grabbed some of those. It was nice. Jenkins actually recovered from routing, so we're bringing him back up. And I believe we turn around a single infantry battalion, or brigade, to deal with Stuart, because I think he's going to come back at some point. He's not going to be a problem, really, because we turned around the brigade. But he does pin down that brigade for the remainder of the fight, I think, until he routes. Stuart, that is. Or whatever his name is. I think it was an S. The regiment, or the brigade that's flanking us. I'm like, oh yes, Jenkins, and then, oh yes, Stuart. Where is he? Right there, leaving the Enfields in a position to hold the line from the retreating guys, hopefully distract them long enough for our infantry to start moving up and helping. Up there at Pittsburgh Landing, we had to outflank some entrenched cannon positions, which were giving us a hard time. We didn't want to stand in front of them and get blasted and grape shot into oblivion, so we kind of pushed up while we had the opportunity. And then we start falling back because they were charging us, but I realized their morale was pretty darn low because of how poorly their volleys are coming at us, so we kind of turn and face them. Ah, there we go. There's Jenkins against Stuart, I think, or Jackson or something. There we go, we've secured Pittsburgh Landing now. Wonderful, wonderful. And now we're advancing through the tree line, ideally. We're trying not to advance on the right there because the ironclads are pretty close. So we don't want to get shot by them because we want our artillery up there to begin killing them if we needed to. And in the center there, we're just trying to hold them off the Pittsburgh Landing marker. And here on the left flank, we've decided to march into the swamps over on the left, so we can push them out. We get all the way up here, and we've kind of divided them. So we've got a section that's marching north back to Pittsburgh Landing, and a section that keeps routing south. So we have to divide our line there, which is fine. I think we end up leaving one regiment, or two, maybe three, to hold them at that ford that they end up standing near. Yeah, and at Pittsburgh Landing, it just continues to be alright. I swap out Pond there for whoever that is, because they were running out of ammo, and we were kind of lacking supplies, so... That's, yeah. I think I end up pulling up my supply chain somewhere, whenever I decide to do it. There it is. It's sitting there not moving, so it's not yet. Oh, there we go. And I realize my artillery isn't doing anything, so I start moving the rest of them up to the north. And I consider getting closer to these entrenched enemy positions. But, you know, it ends up not being too great of an idea until we get artillery up there. Oh, and then we spot some cavalry up here. So we turn about and face the cavalry. Try and protect our rear. Or I guess our center left, you might call that. Yeah, it's just basic cleanup from here. I mean, we've got our objective, and then all of a sudden a whole bunch of Union infantry appears out of the center there. I haven't quite noticed. There, now I've noticed. There it is. I'm like, wow, it's a good thing I spotted those cavalry and moved infantry into position, or otherwise we would have been flanked pretty hard there. Oh, and Stewart there has decided to take up position in the Hornet's Nest, which turns out great for us because apparently it's very bad cover. Despite being an objective where they tried to hold, it was bad cover, so... We end up just standing there and shooting them, and then they rout out of the Hornet's Nest, and then we pursue them, and then I think that's how it stays until the end of the battle. I've decided that I don't want my infantry to keep walking through the swamp because they're probably not going to fall or try to outflank us through the swamp. So that's what happens there. I think we have a unit break in the right there in the field there because he's way too close to the enemy artillery and a lot of enemy infantry sections. Yeah, you can see his morale breaking, and I don't think... There we go. Now I've noticed. So I'm there, yeah. Fortunately, he doesn't route all the way, so the artillery isn't exposed. So it gives the artillery time to work over the enemy until, oh yeah, and there we start to see him waver again, but he doesn't stop standing there, which is the core part. Core part that we wanted. Oh, and there we go. There's the end of the battle. I wasn't worried too much about it because I saw the timers going down. You can see a little better than 2-to-1 killed to death, which is good for an attack, I'd say. Yeah. We lost one guy, and I don't know if he was even ours. As for kills, our units did pretty good, so did the random other units. Cuts did great there. I'm pretty sure he was the Lorenz rifle guys. Here I'm going over the artillery. Artillery doing pretty good, considering how not great it is. And then there's the Tredegears. The Tredegears did great. I'm glad I bought them. I don't think I quite recognized how well they did, considering, but they did very good considering there was only like 7 of them. So I'll probably continue to buy them. And as you can see, we've captured a lot of Springfield rifles and a couple pieces of artillery. It's pretty good. Pretty good battle overall. And then Oh yes, this is our rewards for the battle. And the end is rapidly approaching, so I'm going to stop talking, and I hope you enjoyed the time lapse, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.